Ben Warsinske, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Phil?
Man, I am awesome. We finally connect. We've been trying to get the schedule right for I don't know a while now, and so now we're in the 90-day war. We're in the war zone. I'm going to do both of those hashtags. Shout out to Michael Trung for coming up with the 90-day war hashtag. Ben, what's going on with you? What you been up to, man?
I've just been really busy just working with a bunch of clients and helping them develop their brands. And that goes from anything from developing the brand from like the overall company perspective to focusing on a specific product or service that they want to kind of find the messaging for and really kind of connect with a specific audience within that product or service niche. And just having fun traveling. I just got back from Seattle for a few days, visiting family.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, just been busy.
Man, it's better coffee in Seattle than it is here in Atlanta. I'll tell you what. When you're working with your clients, I know you see all kinds of things. There are internal branding issues. There are obviously external branding issues. For me, I do a lot of work with people that not on a branding issue, but on maybe a communications issue where we're talking about coaching leaders to be more engaged, coaching leaders or doing a workshop, just talking about soft skills, leadership development, professional development, helping them to be more effective, actually give to the ROI, the bottom line, drive sales, that sort of thing. When you're doing internal branding, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing?
So that's a really good question. And it ranges obviously based on the culture and the company and where they are and what they're doing and where they're headed. I think the biggest issues that I find is the leadership team has one idea of what the brand is and what its values are, and the employees, the people doing the work day-to-day operations, they see it in a completely different way. And so when they're misaligned, then you have lots of miscommunication, and then there's lots of the partners or the owners of the company may say, well, hey, we're doing this one thing and everything is great, and the people doing the work are like, wait a minute, like these processes are terrible. Like it takes us 90 steps to get through this. And it's like, it's a big hassle. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is a terrible quality of life for trying to get this work done. And like, we're running around with our heads chopped off and we can't it's really hard to meet our deadlines, whatever the case may be. And so so when I get into like brand, I call it brand strategy because from my perspective, the brand is really like the hub, and then everything else is a spoke around that, because everything that the brand does or is perceived to do, or how you think about it, how the brand talks, how people communicate about the brand, it's all tied back to the brand. So it's soft skills, it's hard skills, it's operations, it's the overall strategy. And so I kind of get into a lot of different areas, which people don't like think of right off the top. Like they're like, well, how does that work? But then once you get into it, you're like, oh wow, that does make a whole lot of sense. So
it's a puzzle, right? And all these pieces start fitting together. The problem is you've got the one puzzle piece everybody's thinking about, not recognizing there are 300 other puzzle pieces and 50 of them could possibly connect to that. Where do you go from here? So that leads us to the change management process, right? You've got that. You then have to have leadership talking about what they're trying to achieve, why they're trying to achieve it, but that disconnection is still there. Plus, oh my God, let's talk about silos, right? Where you have a disconnection from CHRO, you've got the COO who's disconnected, you got the CFO who's like, man, we got Sarbanes-Oxley, we got to take care of this stuff over here. And the people down at the middle and the frontline supervisors are like, y'all just don't get it.
Right.
So how do you bridge that gap? I'm curious.
So this is where I like really nerd out. So I love like strategic planning. And so this is like my jam. So I go in and I do a ton of research and interviews with the front lines, with the middle managers, with the executives, and figure out all their different perspectives. And then I kind of put that all together and say, this is what the executives are thinking, and this is how they view things. This is what middle management is saying. This is how they're viewing things. This is what the front lines are thinking, and this is how they view things. And here's where we're misaligned, and here's the opportunities to come together and be aligned, and kind of put everything together. And once we get everybody kind of on that same page with that consensus, then we have kind of a current situation report, and that's kind of our baseline, and then we figure out where we want to go into the future.
Yep.
And that can be a lot of fun as well. It can be scary. It can be it can be lots of like, it's okay, like we'll get there, like we just want to think big, like, do it, like, it's once people get over that fear of like the unknown of what the future could hold, they really kind of get into it, and it becomes really a lot of fun. Yeah. And so once we build that plan for the future, and then we have our plan of where we currently are, then it's like, okay, now we can start to put the steps together, and we can start to build out the, everything that we want to do in order to get there. So that's where, like, that's my like favorite thing to do ever. And people are like, that's really nerdy, but that's me. So
when I think of the transition that has to happen inside of people's heads and hearts, right? Because you mentioned soft skills and hard skills. It really is both. You've got your product, your prices, your positioning, all of that, but that's all hard skills.
Yep.
And you've got people. And unfortunately, not everything will ever be AI. So you have to learn how to not just manage people, but to lead people. I think that one of the greatest contributions to understanding principles of management was Dr. Robert Cialdini, when he talks about his 7 principles of influence. One of the challenges that we have is developing away from the concept of authority being, I am in charge, I am a manager, therefore I am a leader. No. If people are working for you and continue working for you out of fear and intimidation or manipulation, you are not a leader. You're a manager, and a poor one at that. And if you then transition over to being a leader, well, how do you do that? Well, so let's talk about head versus heart. If your folks understand unequivocally, you've got their back within whatever parameters you have to deal with. Always lean towards or tend towards trusting you, believing you, engaging with you. Your turnover goes down. Your attrition goes through the floor. Your retention goes up. Your profits go up because you're not spending so much money on recruiters. I mean, it's all of these good things just from one little switch. Just in authority and how you influence. And it used to be the 6 principles of influence. And then he said, wait a minute, there's a 7th, and it's unity. When we talk about unity, we are influenced by people that we feel connected to, that we feel brand loyal to. So when a CEO gets out of their own way and says, you know what, I could be the stumbling block. When a CFO, CHRO, COO, whomever in senior leadership gets out of their own way and says, okay, yes, I'm driven. Yes, I got to do this. But as soon as they say but, they've now flipped that switch and they've said, I'm open to receiving other avenues of communication from whatever ways. And now we bridge the intergenerational gap. We bridge the silo gap. We start looking at things in a more constructive way. I'm going to shoot you one last question. And I am curious if you can tell me, what is the funniest situation you've ever run into? And then we've got to set up another time when we can talk some more. What is the funniest situation you've ever run into where, some leader at whatever level of the organization, just you're talking to them and all of a sudden, they just do the proverbial face palm and they're like, oh God, I've been doing it wrong all this time. Tell me a story real quick.
Oh my gosh. Funny story. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, that's what this video's for, right?
That's a really good question. A lot of my work, centered around working with the Air Force and the Navy and military operations. So there wasn't a whole lot of humor around that. It was like kind of like,
What, you're saying those guys are too serious? What is that? But let me make a phone call. I'll put you on the no.
But I guess it's just kind of funny when I can't think of a specific example, but when I'm talking to like the executives and they're saying one thing and they just are so gung-ho about it, and then you talk to the employees and they say something completely different, and when you go and you present those two things together, they're just kind of like, wait, like that, like what, like that's not
like what,
like you know, like, and so it feels like two completely different organizations, and that realization within themselves and within like what they've been doing, their behavior, really kind of starts to come through. And so kind of piggybacking on that, and this is just kind of funny in its own way, I use the movie Moana as an example, because if you watch Moana, she, as a, you know, when the movie first starts out, she's on this island and she's being told how to do things, and she doesn't really want to follow direction, and she doesn't have the confidence in herself to know who she is and how she wants to lead. And so she goes off on this journey and she discovers herself, and over time she builds her confidence. Yeah. And when she comes back, she is so full of confidence, and she can say, this is who I am, this is what we're doing, and this is how it'll help the island and our people. And just those three things, that's what a lot of what I do with my work with leaders and executives, is that getting them to, when they're building a brand or when they're trying to refresh their brand, getting them to really look deep inside themselves and be confident with what they are trying to do and who that brand is that they're trying to project. Yeah. Once you internalize that and believe it for yourself, it then comes out so much easier and naturally and organically to everyone else, and everyone else starts to believe it, and then you're off to the races. So I mean, I get made fun of a lot because I use Disney and Moana and like a bunch of like these stories, but they really are really good examples of why things, you know, how things can work better.
Yeah, that's okay. I pull penguins of Madagascar out often enough when I'm doing a workshop. It's like, I really got to come up with a new routine. You know, Ben Warsinske, God bless you. Awesome. I love your time, man. Thanks very much. This has been a lot of fun. We've got to get together another time. Thank you again. Sure. The 90-day war, right? Or the war zone. We're going to hashtag those. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Take care, Ben.
All right.